Today we will be looking at East Africa in regards to the region, population, culture, economic, and social issues.
Hi, my name is Tiara Hood, and in the following slides, you will find a detailed overview of East Africa's nations and their major capitals, the geographic location of the region, major landforms, major lakes and rivers, the diverse climate of East Africa, and its key resource bases. I hope you enjoy my presentation. East Africa is located near the eastern region of the African continent. I'm going to go ahead and circle the coordinates for you guys. It is roughly 5.9 million square kilometers with 20 nations. It is located near the west of Rwanda and Burundi and the south by Mozambique and Malawi. The East African drift is split into two smaller plates since tectonic forces are pulling the continents apart. The Solomali Plate and the Nubian Plate. The Eastern Rift runs through Kenya and Tanzania. The Western Rift runs along the borders of Uganda. It is roughly 6,000 kilometers long. The first nation located in East Africa is Burundi, and its capital is Gitega. This nation is home to Lake Tanganyika. The second nation is going to be Kenya, and its capital is Nairobi. This nation is famous for the Great Wildebeest Migration. The third nation is Tanzania, and the capital is Dodoma, and this is the largest country in the East Africa. The final nation is Uganda, and the capital is Kampala, and this nation is known for being home to the source of the Nile River. Not only are these major landforms iconic, but they hold immense geological and cultural significance. The Great Rift Valley is famous for splitting the region into two different rift zones. Next, Mount Kilimanjaro, which is Africa's tallest mountain, that stands at approximately 5,895 meters above sea level. Lastly, we have Mount Kenya, the second highest mountain in Africa, which is actually an extinct volcano that rose around 3 million years ago, and the last time it erupted was about 2.6 million years ago. East Africa is home to some of the most impressive bodies of water on the region. Among these, Lake Victoria is one of the largest lakes in Africa and the second largest freshwater lake in the world. Another lake would be Lake Tanganyika, the second deepest and the longest freshwater lake in the world. Turning to rivers, the Nile River is undoubtedly the most well known. The Nile River starts at Lake Victoria, traveling through several countries like Uganda and Sudan, before finally reaching Egypt and the Mediterranean Sea. East Africa's climate is very diverse and it varies on the location. In Kenya and Ethiopia, the climate is cooler, but the temperatures drop during the night. In Tanzania and Uganda, the climate is drier and more arid. Some areas get flooded with rain, and in other areas, it may experience droughts. Kenya and Tanzania has had long rains from March to May and short rains from October to December. The coastal regions receive the highest rainfalls. In this slide, I'm going to elaborate on the major resource bases in East Africa. One of the major resources would be minerals. Tanzania is known for gold, tanzanite, and diamonds. This is also one of the largest gold producers in Africa. Another major resource would be the agricultures. Ethiopia and Kenya are known for their famous coffee beans. Kenya also produces flowers, fruit, and vegetables. Another major resource base would be hydropower. The Nile and Tara River provide renewable energy for the eastern region.
Let's begin with the East African population size. As of 2024, the population size is 500,703,845. In the image to the right, we have a chart that indicates the increased percentage of female versus male increase in population. Then we have the most populated nations in East Africa. It begins with Nigeria, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Kenya, Sudan, Uganda, Algeria, and Morocco. And these are just some of the nations. Then we move on to the major cities in East Africa. We start off with Dar es Salaam, which is the largest city in East Africa. Then we have Addis Ababa, which is the capital of Ethiopia and the largest city in its country. We have Mombasa, which is a coastal city in Kenya. Then we have Kampala, which is the capital of Uganda. And then we have Eldoret, which is the principal city in western Kenya. And lastly, we have Nuraku, which is the fourth largest city in Kenya. We then move on to the major civilizations in East Africa, which is known as Aksum. Aksum is the name of the city and a kingdom, which is essentially a modern-day northern Ethiopia. And Aksum is located in the highlands of northern Ethiopia and Eritrea, and parts of what are now Sudan, western Yemen, and southern Saudi Arabia. Aksum was a major naval and trading power from the 1st to the 7th century CE, and its civilization had a profound impact upon the people of Egypt, southern Arabia, Europe, and Asia. The religion that was mainly practiced in Aksum was Christianity and Judaism. Major historic events in East Africa. During World War I and World War II, East Africa was the battleground during both wars, with fighting primarily between British and German forces. And since East Africa was in between, the East African coast was heavily impacted by the slave trade, particularly during the 19th century. Following post-independence challenges, East Africa's nations faced challenges related to political instability, ethnic tension, and economic development, which was a real struggle for them. But in the 20th century, East Africa gained independence from Britain and Germany. When it came to language and religion in East Africa, the primary language was Swahili in locations such as Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya. Although that was the primary language, there was other languages spoken, such as English, French, and Kinyarwanda in locations such as Rwanda. When it came to religion, East Africa was mainly Islam or Christianity, but there was also other religions used or practiced, such as Hinduism, Buddhism, and Baha. In the image to the right, we see the map of which is mainly focused in the two major religions, such as Christianity being the green part and Islam being the red. We rarely see other traditional religions and Hinduism, but in East Africa, the major religion was Islam and Christianity.
Culturally, social customs are huge, and families are community oriented with their extended families living close. They also put a huge emphasis on elders making decisions as well as respecting them, especially in the groups like Kikuyu and Luo people of Kenya and the Baganda in Uganda. They all put a huge emphasis on this. For the rites of passage, we look at ceremonies such as marriage, birth, and initiation to adulthood. In communities like the Maasai, they put a huge emphasis on this, even in ceremonies like circumcision. To the left, we have an example of a ceremony occurring. In East Africa, oral storytelling is a really important tradition. It's how people pass down morals, history, and cultural values through generations. One example of this actually comes from the Swahili people of Kenya and Tanzania. They're known for their folklore, and a lot of their stories, one in particular is Hadithi. These feature animals and supernatural elements. What's cool is that these stories aren't just African in nature, They also blend Arabic and Indian influence, which can explain considering the region's history. You'll find that these stories actually are spread across Swahili-speaking areas like Zanzibar too. And to the right, I put in a picture of a group of people gathered around for storytelling. There are two popular types of music, Tarab and Benga music. Tarab originates from Zanzibar and coastal Tanzania, and it's popular in communities with Swahili culture, and it blends together three different influences, and they mainly use the oud and kanun instruments. And then we have the Benga music, which this comes from Kenya's Luo community, and it's very fast-paced with guitar rhythms, and then it's really popular across Kenya and other parts of East Africa. I'm going to go ahead and play some Benga music so that we can listen to an example. Next, we'll look at different types of dances. On the top right, we have Ngoma, which means drum, and it's used in Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and parts of Kenya. And at the bottom right, we're going to have Isikutu, which is very fast-paced, energetic. There's a lot of drumming as well. Both of them are going to be used in ceremonial and celebratory events. You can see here the bright colors and movements. When looking at religious influences, Christianity is practiced in the mainland with Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda. And then Islam is practiced within coastal cities. There are traditional African religions that are practiced in rural areas. And then Hinduism is found in urban areas, which could be Kenya or Uganda. Here we have two current political issues. On the top right, we have corruption, and then in the bottom right, we have elections and democratic challenges. This is seen with violence and disputes over their elections. In East Africa, activities such as agriculture, tourism, and mining all contribute economically. When we look at development, East Africa has a mix of low and lower middle income economies. Kenya stands out the most as developed, and it is a growing middle class. That said, there are still some significant challenges. Many rural areas face high levels of poverty, where subsistence farming is common. This is due to poor infrastructure, transportation, energy, and communication. And then there's climate change, which also affects agriculture. And then countries like Kenya and Ethiopia are really feeling the impact because of droughts and unpredictable rainfall. When looking at social form and issues, men have dominated public and economic life, and then women face barriers when it comes to accessing education, healthcare, and economic opportunities. In terms of health, HIV and AIDS continues to be a major challenge. There's a lack of care and vaccination in the areas. Regarding education, primary school enrollment is high, but many children, especially girls, struggle because they often are in early marriages and have household responsibilities. Urbanization is rapidly transforming cities that are growing quickly, but because they're growing so fast, overcrowded slums strain the infrastructure and development. To the left, I put a picture of a young lady and her baby.